"You're not going with me today?" "My friends are embarrassed when I bring you around," she said. I said, "Okay," and watched her leave. Packed all my things while she was out. She came home to an empty apartment and a note. Problem solved. She spent the night calling. I spent it at my new place. Hey viewers, before we dive into the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want more stories like this. Thanks. The smell of coffee hit first, like it always did. My ritual. Our ritual, I thought. I poured the dark roast into her favorite mug, the white one with the chipped handle she refused to replace, and added a splash of oat milk. The morning sun sliced through the blinds, casting stripes across the kitchen floor. I could hear her in the bathroom, the hairdryer winding down. A memory flickered unbidden 2 years ago, camping in that brutal rainstorm. The tent had leaked. We'd been soaked and shivering. She'd laughed until she cried, calling me the most ridiculous man alive for trusting a $30 tent from the big box store to survive a monsoon. I'd felt like a hero rigging a tarp. She'd kissed me, lips cold, and said, "My resourceful guy." The words had warmed me more than any fire. "Coffee's ready," I called, sliding the mug onto the counter. "Be out in a sec," she replied, clipped. "Busy." I headed to the bedroom and pulled a shirt from my closet, a dark blue button-down she'd bought me last Christmas. "For when you need to look sharp for my work people," she'd said. Sarah, her closest friend, was having a birthday brunch at some new avant-garde place downtown. All the partners were going. I'd met Sarah's boyfriend Mark a few times, always talking, a sales guy, slapping backs, dropping names of restaurants I'd never afford. But I could hold my own. I'd researched the menu, ready to opine on the saffron-infused avocado toast. She emerged from the bathroom, a vision of focus and preparation. Her hair fell in perfect waves. She smelled of expensive perfume and shampoo. She glanced at me as I fastened my watch. "You almost ready?" she asked, not really looking at me, scrolling through her phone. "Yep, just need my shoes. That place looks cool. I read they forged their own cutlery or something." I tried to sound light, engaged. She didn't answer. She picked up her coffee, sipped, and set it back down. Then she turned, leaning against the counter, finally looking at me. Her expression wasn't angry or sad. It was blank, efficient, like she was about to give me a chore list. "You're not going with me today." The words were so flat, so ordinary, they barely registered. I smiled, a reflexive twitch of confusion. "What? I thought I was invited." "Sarah's boyfriend is going, right, Mark?" She let out a small sigh, the kind reserved for a child asking the same naive question one too many times. She crossed her arms. "Look, that word, a barrier, a full stop. My friends are embarrassed when I bring you around." "Okay." The air left the room. The stripe of sunlight on the floor seemed to freeze, embarrassed. "It's just," she continued, gaze drifting over my shoulder as if explaining something simple to a slow learner. "Not a good fit. You're not like them. You don't get the same things. The conversations just die." Sarah said, "Last time you tried to explain how a catalytic converter works when they were talking about carbon offset credits, it was awkward for everyone." My mind scrambled. Last month, the rooftop bar, Mark had been loudly, wrongly explaining emissions trading. I'd quietly corrected a fundamental technical point. I thought I was contributing. She'd squeezed my hand under the table hard. I thought it was a thank you. So she concluded, voice firm, final, a verdict delivered. "Just stay home. Clean the garage or something. I'll be back by dinner." She picked up her small, expensive purse and walked toward the door. I stood there, the dark blue shirt suddenly feeling like a costume, a pathetic attempt to belong to a play where I'd already been written out. The reality, the sheer casual cruelty, settled over me like a physical weight. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a heated moment she'd regret. This was a cold, premeditated dismissal. She had discussed my social inadequacies with her friends. They had collectively decided I was an embarrassment, and she, my girlfriend of 4 years, the woman who'd called me her resourceful guy, had agreed, letting me get dressed, letting me make her coffee, before delivering the sentence. All the little moments clicked into a horrible, clear picture. The way she had started editing my stories before I told them to her friends, the subtle winks when I mentioned my job in network security. "He's in computers," she'd say, a vague wave of her hand. The gradual decline of invitations to her after-work events. I'd thought she was protecting my time, my introverted energy. I was an idiot. She was protecting her social currency. The heat of shame rose in my cheeks immediately, followed by a wave of cold, pure clarity. This was the truth. This had always been the truth, and I'd been painting over it with memories of leaky tents and early morning coffee. She had her hand on the doorknob. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I didn't ask what I'd done wrong or how I could fix it. The switch had flipped. The man who wanted to fix things for her was gone, erased by 7 words. My voice, when it came, was quiet, utterly calm. It didn't even sound like mine. Okay. I reached up and began to undo the buttons of the shirt, the sharp, smooth fabric she'd picked out. 1 button, 2. She paused, glanced back. For a fraction of a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not regret, but surprise. Surprise at the lack of resistance, the lack of drama. It unsettled her plan, but it passed quickly, replaced by a shrug of mild irritation. My compliance was just another form of my awkwardness. Good, she said, the word empty. We'll talk later. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The sound of her heels clicked decisively toward the elevator. I stood in the middle of the living room, holding the unbuttoned shirt. The door swung shut with a soft, definitive click. Silence. The apartment, which moments before had felt like a shared space, a home, was suddenly just a box of air. The smell of her perfume hung in it, cloying and foreign. The stripe of sunlight on the floor was just light on cheap laminate. The coffee in her mug on the counter began its slow journey to room temperature. Embarrassed. The word echoed in the new, hollow quiet. It wasn't painful anymore. It was a fact, a diagnostic tool. It explained everything. And with that explanation, every last tether of feeling I had for her, every hope, every memory, every fragile thread of us, snapped clean. I let the blue shirt fall from my shoulders. It pooled at my feet, a puddle of rejected effort. Okay, I said again to the silence. It wasn't acceptance. It was the first word of a plan. The silence after the door clicked shut wasn't empty. It was full of a single clarifying frequency, a hum of finality. I looked at the shirt, puddled on the floor, a blue island in a beige sea. I didn't pick it up. I stepped over it. My first move wasn't emotional. It was logistical. I walked to my nightstand, pulled out the small, locked fireproof box where I kept passports, the title to my car, and a stack of emergency cash I'd been squirreling away for a rainy day fund. She'd never known about it. For a real emergency, I told myself, like a medical bill or a car repair. This qualified. This was a triage situation for my own life. I opened my laptop. My hands were steady. I navigated to the shared spreadsheet where I managed our bills, my spreadsheet, because she'd called budgeting a soul-crushing exercise for people with no vision. I removed my autopays for the rent and utilities, effective immediately. I transferred my half of the previous month's bills from our joint account, the one I funded, into my personal account. Then I closed the joint account entirely. Online, it took 90 seconds. The click of the mouse was the only sound in the apartment. Then I got to work. I pulled my old duffel bag and suitcases from the top of the closet. I started in the bedroom, my clothes, my shoes, my books. I didn't sort. I didn't reminisce. Every item received a binary verdict, mine or hers, ours. Mine went into a case. Hers, ours, stayed exactly where it was. The sweater she'd bought me for my birthday, left on the hanger. The framed photo from our trip to the coast, left on the shelf. My smiling face, now a ghost in her narrative. The bathroom came next. My razor, my shaving cream, the specific brand of deodorant she'd always wrinkled her nose at, into a toiletry bag. The expensive cologne she'd picked out for me, the one that fit the man she saw me becoming, stayed on the counter. In the living room, I took the books that were mine, technical manuals, history paperbacks, a few sci-fi novels she'd mocked as escapist. I left the coffee table books on architecture and fashion. I unplugged my PlayStation and the small, high-quality monitor I used with it. The giant TV we bought together sat dark and silent. I didn't need it, brr. The garage was my domain, my toolbox, my workbench, the mountain bike I maintained myself. These were the things that, in her eyes, made me unrefined, the tangible evidence of a man who worked with his hands and didn't just talk about market trends. I loaded them into my car with fierce, protective care. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. A text from her, sent from the brunch table. A performative gesture for her friends, no doubt. She'd ordered the truffle eggs. You'd hate it. So rich. Garage looking better. I stared at the screen, the casual cruelty, the assumption of my static, boring presence waiting for her. I didn't block her. Not yet. I set the phone to silent and placed it face down on the kitchen counter. I called Leo, my oldest friend from trade school, a guy she'd once called unambitious but harmless. Leo, I need a favor. I need to move a bed and address her today, and maybe crash on your couch for a night. To his eternal credit, he asked exactly 0 questions. Address ETA 1 hour. Bring beer. When Leo arrived with his truck, his face was grim. He took in the stacks of boxes by the door, the empty spaces on the shelves. He clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder. That bad, huh? Worse, I said, and that was all the explanation I offered, or he required. We loaded the furniture in an efficient, wordless duet. Finally, the apartment was stripped of me. It looked unbalanced, like a smile missing key teeth. The spaces where my things had been were accusing voids. It was perfect. On the bare kitchen counter, next to her now cold, full mug of coffee, I placed a single yellow sticky note. I didn't write a novel. I didn't explain my pain or list her failures. I wrote 2 words that addressed her stated problem with the clinical precision of an engineer solving for X, problem solved. I took one last look. This wasn't my home. It was a stage set where I'd been playing a supporting role in her life. The set was being struck. I walked out, closing the door softly on the past 4 years. My new place was a studio apartment over a quiet garage. It smelled of fresh paint and pine cleaner. The floors were bare concrete. The windows looked out on a large oak tree. It was empty, clean, and utterly blessedly mine. Leo helped me haul the bed frame up the narrow stairs. We assembled it in silence. The metallic clicks and turns became a new kind of ritual. As we finished, my phone, still face down on the counter in the old apartment, began to light up. I brought my work laptop and set it up on a cardboard box. A notification popped up, a missed call, then another. Then a text alert synced to the desktop. I didn't look. I ordered pizza for Leo and me. We ate straight from the box, sitting on the floor, drinking the beer we'd brought. He told me a stupid story about a client at his auto shop. I laughed. The sound was strange in my ears, but it was real. When he left, the real silence began. Not the hollow silence of the old apartment, but a peaceful, expansive quiet. I lay on my new bed in the dark, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling. The phone in my old life buzzed like a trapped insect. I imagined her walking in, the key in the lock, the door swinging open, her heels clicking on the floor, then stopping. The pause as her eyes adjusted, scanning the living room, the slow walk to the kitchen, seeing the empty counters, the missing coffee maker, her mug still full, the sticky note, picking it up, reading it, the cold shock turning to hot panic, the frantic search of the closets, the bathroom, the garage, the realization dawning. Not a tantrum, not a temporary storm, but an evacuation. The first voicemail arrived in my inbox at 8:17 p.m. Voicemail 1. What the hell? Where are all your things? Is this a joke? Did you move out? Call me right now. This isn't funny. Her voice was a mix of confusion and burgeoning anger. No concern, just a front. The text started a few minutes later, a staccato burst of disbelief. Her, 8:23 p.m. We need to talk. Her, 8:31 p.m. You can't just leave. What about the rent? What about the lease? Her, 8:45 p.m. My friends are asking where you are. Sarah said it was weird you just bailed. This is so awkward for me. Her, 9:12 p.m. Okay, I'm sorry about what I said. Okay, you took it too personally. It was just brunch. Can you please be an adult and call me? I read them on my laptop screen. Each notification a little pulse of validation. Awkward for her. That was the core takeaway. Not, I hurt you, but, you're making my social life inconvenient. I went to bed and slept a deep, dreamless sleep for the first time in months. The unraveling had been slow, public, and poetic. Week 1. The tone shifted from anger to wheedling. Her, the kitchen sink is making a weird gurgling noise. You always knew how to fix that. Her, I got a late fee on the electric bill. The autopay didn't go through. Did you do something with the account? Her, Mark asked about you at dinner. He said, you were actually really knowledgeable about that cryptomining energy stuff. He wanted to pick your brain. I didn't respond. I was busy. I hung shelves. I bought a plant. I signed up for a weekend workshop on woodworking. Week 2. The first fracture in her social armor appeared. A message from Sarah, her tone dripping with condescending concern. Sarah, hey, this is Sarah. Look, I don't know what's going on with you two, but you're really hurting her. She's a mess. Whatever manly pride thing you're doing, just get over it. Real men don't ghost. They work it out. I typed a one-line reply. My first communication to anyone in her orbit. Me, there's nothing to work out. We're done. I blocked her number. Week T. The karma engine shifted from social to practical. A mutual friend, Ben, a decent guy who'd always been caught in her crowd, sent me a message. It was a simple screenshot of a group chat. I could see her name, Sarah's, Mark's, a few others. Her in chat, I don't get it. He just left over one comment. So fragile. Mark, yeah, but babe, you said we were embarrassed by him in front of my guys. That's cold. LOL. Sarah, Mark, not helpful. She's grieving. Ben to me privately, dude, they're tearing into her. Mark's been making snide comments ever since. Said, if you're so embarrassing, why is she freaking out? Sarah's pissed you called her bluff. It's a show. You okay? I wrote back to Ben. Me, I'm good. Thanks, man. That night, a new voicemail. Her voice thick, shaky. The performance of remorse. Voicemail 2. Please pick up. Please. I get it now. I was awful. Those friends, they're toxic. They're not real. I've cut them all off. It's just me now. The real me, the one you loved, the one who loved you in that tent in the rain. Remember? Please, can we just get coffee as friends? I just need to see you. I listened once. The manipulation was exquisite. The weaponization of my own cherished memory. The tent was no longer ours. It was a prop in her plea. I felt nothing but distant, academic admiration for the technique. I waited a day, then called back. She answered on the first ring, desperate, breathless. "Hello, I'm glad you're working on yourself," I said, voice calm, flat, a statement of neutral observation. "So, can we coffee tomorrow?" Hope, thin and brittle, stretched across the line. "No," I said. "That wouldn't be good for me." I could hear her sharp intake of breath. "Take care." I hung up before she could reply. The final message came an hour later. No pretense, no performance, just the raw, entitled anger I'd always sensed beneath the glossy surface. The true colors flying at last. You know what? Fine. You were always weak. This just proves it. You couldn't handle a strong woman. You'd rather run and hide than fight for something. You'll die alone and boring in your little cave. I'm better off. You did me a favor. I stared at the words. They didn't hurt. They were just information. The final confirmation of the person I'd finally stopped pretending she wasn't. I didn't reply. I simply selected the contact, scrolled to the bottom, and tapped lock this caller. The buzzing in my old life stopped. The silence in my new one was complete, and it was golden. The unraveling on her side was now her problem to manage. My work here was done. The silence after the block was a profound relief. It was like a constant, low-grade electrical hum in my brain had finally been switched off. I settled into the rhythm of my new life. The studio became a home. I sanded and refinished a vintage desk I found at a thrift store. I joined a recreational climbing gym, finding quiet focus in physical exertion that required no conversation. My work in network security, once a source of her embarrassment, was a well of deep satisfaction and ironically funded my new independence with ease. I was, for the first time in years, at peace. The world, however, had not forgotten the thread she was pulling. The karma was not a thunderclap, but a slow, relentless seep. Ben, the mutual friend, kept me vaguely informed. His messages a series of quiet updates from the front lines of the collapse. Ben, Sarah, and her had a massive blowout. Sarah said she was tired of being the therapist friend and maybe should look in the mirror if all her relationships keep exploding. They're not speaking. Ben, Mark is apparently dating Sarah now. Or was. It's messy. Your name got thrown around a lot as the stable one who got away. Awkward. Ben, she lost her job. No. T fired, but encouraged to pursue other opportunities after she blew up at a client who reminded her of you. Apparently, gossip is wild. I never asked for these updates, but I didn't stop them. They weren't a source of joy, just clinical confirmation of cause and effect. She had dismantled her support system to make room for a version of herself that didn't exist, and the structure had collapsed. The outreach attempts evolved, becoming more unhinged as her desperation grew. The workplace ambush. I was leaving my office, a modern tech campus, not the dank server room she'd always imagined, when I saw her leaning against my car. She looked small, deflated, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and one of my old university hoodies I'd left behind. The calculation was obvious, the visual cue of shared history, a retreat to a simpler version of herself. "Hey," she said, offering a fragile smile as I approached. I didn't break stride. I clicked my key fob and reached for the door handle. "This is a private parking lot. You need to leave, please. Just 5 minutes." I drove an hour. "That was your choice," I said, opening the door. Her calm facade cracked. "God, can you just stop being a robot for 1 second? I'm standing here. I'm saying I was wrong." I paused, one foot in the car. I looked at her, really looked. The anger in her eyes was familiar, but the fear beneath it was new. "You said that. The answer is still no." "Why?" she pleaded, voice rising. "Just give me a reason. Is it someone else? Did you replace me that fast?" I almost laughed. That was the only lens she had, being traded for a newer model. It had never occurred to her that the ultimate upgrade was solitude. "Peace. My reasons are my own," I said, voice level. "They have nothing to do with you anymore. Now please move away from my vehicle or I will call security." The threat, public, institutional humiliation did it. She flinched, stepping back as if burned. I got in, started the car, and drove away, watching her shrink in my rearview mirror, a ghost in my old hoodie. The family gambit. A week later, my phone rang with an unknown number from her hometown area code. I knew who it was before I answered. Her mother, Diane, a woman who had always treated me like a serviceable piece of furniture. "John, it's Diane." Her tone was the same, brisk, expecting compliance. Diane, we need to talk about my daughter. She's not well. She's heartbroken. She made a mistake. Yes, but what you're doing, this silent treatment, this abandonment, it's cruel. It's beneath the man I thought you were. I leaned back in my desk chair, looking out at the oak tree. What would you like me to do, Diane? Be a man, talk to her, forgive her. She's learned her lesson. The family is very concerned. She's talking about moving back home, for God's sake. Her life is in shambles. I'm sorry to hear that her choices have had consequences, I said, carefully avoiding any sympathy. But her life is not my responsibility. It hasn't been for some time. There was stunned silence on the other end. I had never spoken to Diane this way. I had always been the placid, agreeable boyfriend. How can you be so cold? After everything we did for you, you were part of this family. I was a guest. I corrected gently and overstayed my welcome. I hope she finds the help she needs. Goodbye, Diane. I hung up. The call was a final piece of the puzzle. The toxicity wasn't just her. It was the ecosystem that had bred her entitlement. Cutting her out meant cutting the whole vine. The messages from new numbers I kept blocking became fragmented, pathetic. Unknown, I saw a truck like yours today and my heart stopped. Unknown, I'm in therapy. My therapist says I have attachment issues from my father. It wasn't about you. Unknown, do you ever miss it, even a little? I didn't, and that was the most liberating truth of all. Months bled into a year. The studio had become a proper apartment. Plants thrived. The refinished desk held my monitors, a sleek setup that brought consulting work paying more than my old salary. I'd reconnected with Leo and Ben, and through them met new people, a hiking group, a casual board game night crew. There was a woman, Clara, from the climbing gym. We'd gone for smoothies a few times. It was easy, light. There was no performance, just two people enjoying an activity. I wasn't rushing anything. I was enjoying the spaciousness of my own life. The encounter happened in the most mundane place imaginable. A large home improvement store on a Sunday afternoon. I was in the lumber aisle, comparing boards for a shelving project. A list in one hand, a pencil behind my ear. I felt a presence hover, a familiar scent cutting through the smell of sawdust and pine. I turned. She was standing there, holding a single forlorn light bulb. She looked older, not in a bad way, but in a weathered way. The polished gloss was gone, replaced by tired realism. She wore simple clothes, no makeup. She was just a person in a fluorescent-lit aisle. Our eyes met. I saw the shock in hers, then the frantic calculation, the hope, the fear. I felt nothing, no anger, no residue of pain, not even pity. It was like seeing a former coworker from a job you'd left years ago. "John," she breathed. "Hey," I said, giving a small, polite nod. I turned back to my boards, running a thumb along a grain line. "You look really good," the words tumbled out. "Healthy." "Thanks," I said, not looking up. "How have you been?" It was the ultimate, casual dismissal, a social nicety with zero emotional weight. She let out a shaky laugh, almost a sob. I've been better. Been through it, therapy, all that." She took a step closer. I didn't move away, but I didn't lean in. I remained a neutral pole. I think about that day all the time, what I said. It was monstrous. I don't know who that person was. I finally looked at her, expression calm, open, utterly detached. "It's good you're figuring that out." "I am," she said, encouraged by my eye contact. "I really am. I sold all the stupid designer stuff. I got a job at a library. It's quiet. I'm trying to be a real person." She swallowed. "I miss you. Not like I want to get back together. I know that ship has sailed. I'm not an idiot. I miss my friend. I miss the person who knew me before I tried to be someone else. It was her best pitch, the most honest, least manipulative one yet. It might even have been true." I nodded slowly, considering her words. I saw the desperate hope blooming in her eyes. She thought her authenticity might be a key that fit the old lock. "I'm glad the library job is working out," I said. "Quiet is underrated." I picked up a straight, clean board of maple and placed it in my cart. And for what it's worth, I don't think about that day or that person. The hope in her face froze, then shattered. My words weren't cruel, they were factual. I had truly moved on. Her grand tragedy was a footnote in my history. "Oh," she whispered. "The person you're remembering," I continued, voice gentle. "The friend from before, I'm not him anymore either. That guy died in that apartment. This version of me is happier, lighter. He built a life that fits." Tears welled in her eyes, but they weren't the performative ones from the voicemails. They were the quiet, devastating tears of final understanding. "So there's no room even for a coffee?" I offered a small, sincere smile. It held no malice, no gloating. It was the smile of a man completely at peace. My life is really full right now, and I've learned to protect my peace. It's nothing personal. I truly hope you find yours. I meant it. I wanted her to be okay, somewhere far away from me. Her well-being was as relevant to me as that of a stranger on the other side of the world, a vague human wish for no suffering, utterly disconnected from my own heart. I tapped my list. I've got to get these brackets. Take care of yourself, okay? I gave her one last nod, the kind you'd give a cashier or a passerby who held a door. The wheels hummed on the polished concrete. I didn't look back. I didn't wonder what she was doing. I turned the corner toward hardware, my mind already on the weight capacity of drywall anchors. Behind me, in the canyon of lumber, she was alone with a light bulb and the absolute, irrevocable knowledge of her own irrelevance. I was already gone, not just from the store, but from the story she told herself about her life. I had vanished so completely that my absence was no longer a void in her world. It was just the way things were. And in my cart, I carried the boards for new shelves, for a home that was wholly, quietly, and contentedly mine. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story?